we carried, talking about Nigeria-U.S. trade relations. And again, if we were to go back to the opinions we have seen, quite a number of those who have spoken in favor of a Clinton presidency based their sentiments on the fact that she's more in tune with the situations in our country, Nigeria. But if you recall when President Obama first came into office, it was widely believed that as one very first of African descent, given Nigeria's position in Africa, Nigeria would be, top on his agenda, and he would actually engage Nigeria more. But he never came here in 8 years.
Oh, you're right on the number of factors that we can attribute to that. Earlier on in our discussion, I have said that we shot ourselves at some point. Bear in mind that at the time he was coming to office, we were just getting out of a critical election in which it was believed that there was massive rigging. And at the same time, we have also consistently created a narrative that is not too good about this country. So when they began to look at where the new president should visit in a place like Africa, they found Ghana a far more better place with less problem and good reasons to visit Ghana than a country like Nigeria, where there are issues of rigged election, where there are issues of corruption and the rest of it. In fact, if you look at the early stages of the Obama presidency, it was all about corruption. When Mrs. Clinton was coming in here in 2009, she visited 11 African countries and she just kept talking of corruption and with direct reference to Nigeria all the time. So in a way, it's because sometimes we too control some of these problems for us by escalating or by unnecessarily beating ourselves, as Akin has said, much earlier. We kind of exaggerate too much the issues of corruption or weaknesses here and there. We are not the most corrupt country on earth. There's issue of corruption, but we are not the most corrupt country, on earth. But we make it as if we are. So consequently, we just find out that things didn't work out between us and the Obama administration. And we're not the only one in this. What made it probably painful was the fact that when you put it on a scale of 1 to 10, Nigerians were more emotionally involved with the Obama ascendancy at that time. There was also a situation in Kenya, and so he avoided Kenya as well. But much later, he went to Kenya, and as he prepares to leave office, he's not visited Nigeria, and I personally just feel that we have ourselves to blame for this.
Professor Ibrahim.
Well, maybe we shouldn't worry too much
for now
whether an American president decides to visit us or not, because at the end of the day, it's more a question of prestige than reality that affects our existence, our conditions, and above all, our possibilities for progress. I think we've made the point earlier that at the end of the day, the responsibility of an American president is to promote the interests of America. I think the whole of the African continent has learned to understand that very clearly. And our own approach to it should be, well, how compel, cajole the Americans to switch over to our interests. It has to be based on what we do. If we don't do the right things, and I think that's the point Ambassador Keshi is making, then we do not expect positive outcomes. And as a new American administration comes into power, I think it's very important for the Nigerian administration to take the issue much more seriously in terms of Not, for example, rushing to the inauguration, but doing the preparatory work to ensure we can get the best we can out of the American system. That's really our responsibility. A lot of the reports I hear for the Americans, for instance, is that the various visits to the US by Nigerian officials were not very productive because we had not done the necessary preparation for those visits. I think it's really that background work that's the most important going forward.
Right. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, let me add in support of what Professor Jibirin had just analyzed, that the sentiment that should be very clear is that, as he also said at the beginning, nobody's going to come and develop Nigeria for us one way or the other. You know, but there are factor inputs as well as certain economic hills and small mountains that we should be claiming at this time. There's no question that weaning us off oil is not a bad thing in principle. Refocusing attention to agriculture is not a bad thing in principle, but agriculture itself can only be a foundation. For us to come to a point where we become global players, the manufacturing sector really ought to command the attention. And it is appalling that the steel industry, the steel sector in this country has not been developed. Without steel, we can't manufacture anything. Essentially, we have to import every other thing from overseas. Then, of course, you have the other reality that is a matter, it's a global supply and demand. America is not the only market. There are other markets, and we're not even servicing them. The whole of Africa basically accounts for 2.1% of the global economy. And the old joke a while ago, which I'm sure many of us have heard and laugh over, but it's very painful, is that if Africa were to disappear economically from the map of the world, nobody would even notice.
Not too
Okay.
good.
So we have a problem here, and Nigeria ought to be the leader.
So, okay, that brings us to the point that some people say we pander too much to America and the West generally. Is that right?
Well, that statement has been made, and I think some of the move that I have seen with the current administration, even though we still have the relationship with the West when it comes to trading, it looks like we kind of spreading ourselves where we have the East also bringing, especially case in point, the trip to China, you know, to get the Chinese for the infrastructure and other things, while the Americans and the Western to do the security and also the other government information, the agric and the rest. But I think it's a good thing to look at both spectrum in terms of our development, not put our eggs all on one. And I think there was a statement that was made during the when Obama won, when the delegates went from here. I think there is a lesson there. I'm sure it's been learned that when Hillary wins, any Nigerian delegation going,
Okay.
not just going to, am I jumping?
Well, I noticed you said when, not if. Ambassador Fayomi.
No, but he has a very valid point, you see, which also Prof also mentioned earlier. So I personally, I don't really care whether somebody comes in to take pictures with me or something.
All right.
I'm not interested in that. So president coming and going, it's just part of his daily schedule. And then in terms of the American interest, it was not in his interest to come to Nigeria and hobnob with a president here that has flawed elections, that has corruption and all. So that's American interest being served. So for us to serve our own interest, we should look beyond the photo opportunities. What we need to do is to sit down and carve out strong policies whereby we can promote Nigerian interest. Right. We don't have to see each other. You can communicate with me. I can send my foreign minister, trade minister. Presidential visits are not that, should not be taken so seriously that we should be apologetic about somebody coming to visit us or not. We need, like he said just now, where if Madam Clinton comes in, I'm using if now, not when. We have to be prepared. We have to know what we want to gain from the presidency of Mrs. Clinton. because we already have some goodwill with her and all that.
Wow.
But if Trump comes in, what we want to get from Trump, in spite of
124.
our maybe lethargic attitude to his election chances. So we you know, our policy has to be garnered in a way that it has to benefit Nigeria.
Well, as we speak, a third set of polls have closed, and some of them, of course, we'd announced before, but we just have the third set now. Alabama, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, Missouri, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Tennessee, Washington, Florida. And of course, this is the largest set that could determine where this election goes. And since we're still looking out for more results coming in, by the way, it's been changing almost by the minute, and we should have a new set of results shortly. Yes, we should have a fresh set of results soon. But it's still in order to say if Hillary Clinton wins or if Trump wins. Yes, quite a number of people would be a bit edgy about that. But again, what should Nigeria take to the table in the event of a Trump presidency?
Exactly. I was going to say, let's think of...
Before he answers, let us say that
Something came in?
Trump has 124 electoral votes and Hillary 97.
Right. So far.
97.
How many states have been called? Do we have that?
A couple of states.
124, 97.
Yeah.
No, but no.
Trump has gone up to
Oh,
130 and Hillary is still at 97.
So,
Yeah, we'll change.
I don't know which states are coming. These they're not indicated, but I'm sure we get
Okay,
them.
looks
You know
like
it's going to be a seesaw. The whole
Still
year.
the
even
right-
other
it's
reports
still
are
the
saying
right
Hillary is
belt.
now 104.
It keeps changing, like
It
you
keeps
said.
changing. There's different states coming.
Other reports saying
we see.
104
well-
now for Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
anyway.
it's it keeps changing. So, as you said, what would we bring?
Yes.
Or
let's look at
Yes.
that hypothetical.
yeah, if the Trump gets it.
From our point of view, let's we don't want to look at it as irreal. You can measure regimes by all kinds of factors. In terms of policy, one clear area that affects us is of course foreign policy. Then you have trade, cultural and social relations, and so on and so forth. There's no question that the first concern with the Trump presidency would be his ideological orientation. Mrs. Clinton is no more within our understanding. The Cold War is gone, so that if we were talking of Ronald Reagan, would understand where they were coming from. The post-Cold War era was Clinton, Bush, and so on. We could also understand where they were coming from. What nobody can put a finger on is the sort of implication of what Trump is all about. And it's a throwback to 1920s and pre-1920s America, where the white man was king in every way. Society has changed dramatically, and this is an attempt to go back to an era where minorities were seen but not heard. At least that is the fear. And it is remarkable that world leaders all over picked up on what was coming from Trump. The French president, Hollande, said that this man makes my stomach retch, for instance. The British Prime Minister at the time, David Cameron, said this man is totally ignorant. Even Putin had not so nice things to say about Trump and his stability. So the ideological push, because the philosophy that he espouses will be the governing philosophy of the regime. He will make all those 40,000 appointments or however many they get there. And if he has a majority in the House of Reps, for instance, and even if the Democrats get the vote they need to take control of the Senate, as it were, he has enormous powers. So that is a regime that will be a problem for us here in Africa, largely because he will not be very interested in Africa. He's never been here, hardly mentioned anything about Africa without being pejorative. As somebody has said, is also a regime based on checks and balances. I don't think that he will bring down the world, even though I, for one, having done a lot of work on some of the nuclear things that clearly has had the world on edge for some time, I worry about the stability, the mental stability of anybody who can say that, well, every country can have their own nuclear weapons. You know, why don't we allow North Korea, South Korea, if they can pay for it, they can buy their own, and things that the NATO wall that sort of maintains a little bit of peace in Europe is something that can be dismantled and so on. Anybody who thinks that way is really an infantile internationalist, and I really worry about where Trump is coming from. So it will not be good for us. That's the bottom line.
Professor Jibril Ibrahim, would the Trump presidency be worrisome for Nigeria, in your opinion?
I think it will be very worrisome. For one, he has made derogatory comments about Nigerians. Secondly, Nigerians, part of the 9 million illegal immigrants he wants to send out of the country. And I think the most worrying for me is the persistence of his allegations of all Nigerians being corrupt. We know there's some corruption in this country, but he seems to believe every Nigerian is corrupt, and that's really more of prejudice than fact. That means Nigeria will have a very complicated foreign policy with a Trump presidency, and protecting our national interests will be even that more difficult. Of course, Trump makes the point that he's somebody who believes in the art of negotiation, and it's up to the other side to negotiate their own bargain as well as they could. And in a sense, that could be a challenge for a country like Nigeria, where in foreign policy matters, we don't really have a tradition of very effective bargaining. And all pointers to this country is that we need to improve our various capacities, not just in terms of diversifying and strengthening our economy, but also in being able to better negotiate preferable outcomes for ourselves. And I think that Trump challenge may be good for us in the sense of being forced to sit up and fight for our rights, our existence, and our interests.
All right. Well, we'll take another break at this point. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly, and hopefully we'll bring in more results.
This is a happy moment for me and for all Nigerians.
Amina Ali Nkeke, the first Chibok school girl to be rescued in the renewed onslaught against the Boko Haram insurgency.
Amina's rescue gives us new hope.
Federal government has formally received the 21 abducted Chibok girls.
These dear daughters of ours have seen the worst that the world has to offer. It is now time for them to experience the best that the world can do for them. Government meaning that return safely.
Do you know that importing consumables and domestic products kill local manufacturing and negatively affect the growth of the economy? That some imported products are dangerous to your health? That building factories can generate massive employment and grow the economy? Buying locally made products and services means investing back in the economy. Thousands of Nigerians are innovative and can take Nigeria to the next level. Growing the economy starts with you and I. Raise the standard. Grow the economy. Buy made in Nigeria.
Thanks for staying with us. Our correspondent in New York, Joy Osiagu, has been around and about speaking to voters. She just sent in this early exit opinion poll.
Ultimately, people have the right to their opinions, and I think I would support Hillary. Simply put, I think she has better policies that are in place that she would ultimately suggest to be in place, and I think she has the experience. I think the experience speaks volume. I think the antics that Trump has been using during this election ultimately have been, I guess, ignorant for lack of better terms, but that's just my personal opinion. But if it goes in favor of Trump, I think the people in the U.S. have spoken in terms of their vote, and it would just be another day.
I mean, it looks very good. Trump is up, and it's pretty exciting. I really hope Trump should make it and he should win. I think we need a president like Donald Trump. You know, we're tired already of politicians.
No, I don't believe in all his ideas. I think Hillary's like, you know, a better candidate for me.
Well, the way the polls are going, we don't know. It's pretty close and tight.
Yeah, I know.
What will happen if Donald Trump should win?
I don't know. We don't know.
I think people are starting to wake up and just realize, you know, that actually, you know, this guy's really, you know, he's probably going to be our president, you know.
No. What if it turns out that he becomes the president? What will you do?
I'm gonna move to Canada.
Pardon me?
I'm gonna move to Canada.
Yeah, first thing, my name is Ibrahim Abba. I'm from West Africa. I'm here like 14 years ago. So I was part of helping the Hillary campaign, presidency 2016. Right now, how I'm seeing the polls, how it's going on, I'm very, very worried about it, you know. So, may I know if you want to be elected U.S. American president, you have to get 270. Like right now, Hillary is leading 68 to 67 for Donald Trump, Republican candidate. This 2016 again, we want to bring the first history in America, U.S. president gonna be one woman. The name gonna be Hillary Clinton.
Well, a report by our correspondent, Joy Osiagu. But of course, those numbers have changed in the last few minutes. So, it's been said that no matter who wins, there are major issues which the Americans will have to tackle. Among them is reuniting the nation that's split from this campaign, and of course, other matters. For instance, restoring the middle class purchasing power. We talked initially about immigration issues, and that one that won't go away, gun crime in America.
It's going to be a tough call for the next president of the United States. And let me just address some of the issues, which is restoring the middle class as we used to know it. That's going to be a very tough one for a couple of reasons. Number one, and this is the main point that I like to emphasize, because American politicians do not often, say it out. One of the reasons, let's leave globalization out of this. One of the main reasons that American companies started outsourcing jobs or started taking their factories to places like Mexico and China was because of the cost, or is because of the cost of labor in the United States. And it's still very high. Trump, for example, makes his ties in China and elsewhere for $2, $3, $5, brings them back and sells them for about $68 in the United States. Now, there's no way, if he's going to make those, his ties and other things, it's probably going to be about $11 to $15. So the cost of production in the U.S. is very high. Number two, when you look at the emotions he tapped into, particularly in the coal regions and those steel companies that have closed over these couple of years, two things have happened. Number one, technology has changed the industries. Number two, coal is not so much important to a number of industries anymore. So how is he going to restore jobs? As a matter of fact, the bulk of the jobs that were created in the last 8 years were in the high-tech industries down in the Silicon Valley, and that's where the world is moving to. So the promise of restoring areas like Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan is going to be a tough call for the next United States president. And of course, we talked about the issue of immigration before. That also is going to be a very heavy burden for the next president.
Professor Jibril Ibrahim.
I think one of the most important issues about these elections is the nature of the promises made, as Ambassador has just been making promises that cannot be fulfilled. The likelihood of what's likely to happen with the Trump presidency, for example, is that he's been very specific in terms of what he would do. He would try to do it, and it would be impossible to do it. In that case, to defend his name, his honor, his promises, is likely to push on the types of sentiments and emotions that have carried him so far in the election, which is you blame the minorities, you blame the blacks for bringing crimes to the United States, you blame the Hispanics for taking jobs of Americans, and you try to chase them and start this climate of general persecution of specific groups of people. And what that will do is sink a divide between white America as it is and all the other minorities. Now, in a very cosmopolitan world, this is going to have all sorts of ramifications all over the world. For example, he says he's going to fight China economically. That's fine. He will try to do that. But that will just drive a trade war. And when you drive a trade war, both economies suffer. Your capacities to address the core problem, which is stagnation in terms of salaries and jobs in the US, will be lessened, and that therefore you are creating conditions for sustained instability. I think that will really be the risk. So much will be in that scenario on really whether the establishment, as it were, would get him to be reasonable. But then, this is somebody who knows his success has depended on being very unreasonable. So why should he now change course if that's the outcome he has been getting? But of course, we don't know what the outcome of the elections is. So we've made the point consistently that we must respect the voters and wait for the full result before we start speculating.
Well, it would seem from what's been released so far that yes, Trump really has a chance to win the presidency.
He does have a chance, and I think people have always made the point that he always had the chance, because there was a group of people who are pro-Trump but didn't want to say so publicly because they are being looked down upon as being crude, uneducated, and all that. Right. So a certain percentage of Trump supporters always hid what their position was. And the Trump people have been saying repeatedly, all of those polls are wrong anyway, that you will see the reality on the election day. And I think on that point, that the reality comes out on election day, Trump is right.
Okay. Well, we're looking at that, but again, we'll also look at other issues. For instance, how a Trump presidency would impact on the Middle East and the war on terror, which is going on in different parts of the world.
It's going to be I don't want to be too fatalistic. I wanted to say it's going to be catastrophic in the sense that he knows his position vis-a-vis the Middle East. You know, he's insulted the Saudis. He doesn't want to go into alliance with any of the Arab nations there. And we know the war on terrorism, particularly with ISIS, is one of the key issues that Obama faced, or is still facing anyway. And if Mr. Trump comes in and he disrupts that tapestry, so to say, and because of the bad relationship he's going to bring in that region, nobody likes him in that region. They don't want him to win because they know that there is going to more or less reject or turn his back on them. And then it means Iraq is going to go seriously into trouble. We are going to have more of the ISIL capturing more territories in Syria. There's going to be chaos. That's why I use that word, catastrophe. And that does not bode well also for the whole world, because terrorism, that is the spring, the launching pad of terrorism. And if he doesn't engage with the Middle East, then how do we want to stop the war on terrorism?
Yeah.
Well,
he has said, for example, when you look at Syria, he has said that we should allow Russia to take care of Syria. If that is his mindset, if he wins and assumes office, it means that he's going to work with the Russians on Syria. That basically means that Assad will be allowed to stay, and they are probably, so that's going to probably annoy the allies and other forces. So what we would then see is further destabilization. And as he rightly pointed out, we could actually see the rise of new forces. I want to make the point that I keep emphasizing, that the American system is such that it could actually help moderate the president, because the generals are going to lay out all the options before him. The people in the Ministry of, the State Department are going to lay up all, look, forget what he said during the election. The reality when he becomes president, look, there's a cartoon that I always referred to many years ago. I think it was carried by Punch when Satsam was running Punch. It says, immediately after the election, he said, now the elections are over, you can change your policies. So we should expect that such things would also happen under a Trump presidency. By the way, just to say that Trump now has 137 and Clinton 104.
Okay. Well, as the results inch to a climax, 137, 104, as you just read out here, let's take a second look at this system that produces a president in the United States, which we have agreed here is not been used in so many other countries. It's unique to them, and which is different from ours as well. And that's talking about the electoral college, which we do not have here. In our case, it's a straightforward win, 2/3 majority, the highest number of votes. But the Americans call it the popular vote, and that is not enough to guarantee a candidate victory. Let's look again at the system where by electoral college before any one man can say, any one candidate can say they've won the presidency. Ominio then brings us that report.
Americans today are not directly voting for their president. They are only empowering electors who will vote the president on their behalf via the Electoral College as provided for in Article 2, Section 1 and Clause 2 of the United States Constitution. Thus, the current election would only determine who among the candidates will have more electors that will actually choose the president on December 19th later this year. The Electoral College is a name given to a group of people who cast each state's official votes for president. Since 1964, The Electoral College is made up of 538 people, which is the total number of voting membership in the U.S. bicameral parliament, plus 3 non-parliamentary electors from the District of Columbia. States are allocated electoral votes based on national census figures conducted every 10 years. States like California, Florida, and Texas have more votes than states like New Hampshire, Vermont, and North Dakota. The only exception being the District of Columbia, which has 3 electors despite not having any voting members in Congress. The candidate who receives at least 270 electoral votes becomes the next president. Through the Electoral College, a candidate can become president without necessarily getting the majority votes, as it happened in the year 2000. Where there is a tie, the House of Representatives with 435 members picks the president, while the 100-man Senate chooses the vice president. How the Electoral College works is that each political party selects a number of electors in various states and empower them to represent the candidate who won the most votes. Electors are free to vote who they want, which means an elector can ignore the popular vote of the people that gave the mandate. Americans call this the faithless elector, but it is rare and has never affected the outcome of an election. Some states require formal pledges enforced by fines and possible jail time, but historically, electors rarely depart from the will of the people. If you understand the Electoral College system of the United States, you will see why they have the so-called battleground states and why campaigns are conducted differently in America. It's a winner-takes-all system as we have in Nigeria, though with a little difference. For instance, a candidate can cut away all the massive electoral votes of a state like Florida by winning even by a few thousand votes. In these, you find the reason why candidates battle to win such states, because they are capable of swinging the election in one's favor. That is also one of the major reasons why opinion polls are so crucial to the election in there. Remember, the magic number candidates are trying to bank is 270. So the path to US presidency is clear. Win majority votes in enough states to get to 270 electoral votes, and your address for the next 4 years will be White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Thank you so very much, our America Decides studio. Very interesting discussions, perspectives, very, very interesting and educative. Once again, back here at the Eradwell Center, we are saying that let's also look at this electoral college votes. We have heard what it means, what it represents in American electoral history and electoral process, integrity of these electoral college votes with respect to the swing states, the battleground states, and what have you. From the graphics we have here, you will see that some states are colored red, while some are colored blue, while some are deep blue, some are just light blue. The deep blue, I am told, are the safe states for Mrs. Clinton, that is for the Democrats, while the deep red states are the safe states for the Republicans and, of course, Donald Trump. Mr. Wagbara, as you were saying, states like Ohio, Virginia, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Colorado, Florida are the swing states. And I can see that Florida, for example, has a total of 29 electoral votes.
Because it has become a highly populated state. So, because it's the population that increases the electoral vote.
So what are the likelihood now of any of the candidates winning Florida?
They will never announce states like Florida until all the counties have been tallied, and because even one vote will make someone win Florida. So that's why the swing states are not being announced now, because they are not safe states. Because they swing, and it can because what they do is that by the time they get a certain percentage, they confirm what they expect. In non-swing states, they announce it. But swing states can swing even a So you have to get to the last vote count before you announce it. So what is good for Mrs. Clinton now is that, forget about what you are seeing now that Trump is leading. As soon as states like California, New York announce, you see how she will jump up quickly. But what is important here, they win Florida. Then it's all over. You see the type of noise people here who are mostly the Democrats will make. If she wins North Carolina, she has won. If she wins Ohio, she has won. But my fear is that she can't win Ohio. Reason is because Ohio is a major industrial state, manufacturing state. And Donald Trump is appealing that he's going to return the jobs that they have left these states. So protectionism is in the interest of manufacturing states. So Ohio is unlikely for her to win it. But Florida, because of Latino population, is a swing state that I'm thinking that will be to her favor.
California is painted deep blue here. That means it's safe for the
It's a safe state. You don't even need to go and campaign there.
And it has a total of
55. That's the largest because it has the largest population.
Are you saying Mrs. Clinton is going to get it?
There's no discussion about it. She must win it. The same way she must win New York. The same way she must win Massachusetts. All these are safe states for Democrats. You cannot even go there. Did she go there to campaign? No. Did Trump go there to campaign? Because it's waste of your resources. Because you don't need to go to a state you have already won.
Educate me, please. The interesting thing was when you said they will wait, they will not announce the swing state results until the last count. What does that mean?
Because the swing state means that you have to wait for the last count. Because remember in 2000, George Bush Jr. won by 500 votes when they recounted a county, because it was a county that actually decided. So there are some counties now that you don't know until you know the last tally, when they are tallied and they have sometimes when they are too close to call, you carefully look at the ballots again carefully. So be certain, so that you cannot create an impression of somebody say, look, I'm not accepting it. I'm going to court. That's what happened in 2000 when Bush said, you know what, I'm going to go to court unless we recount it. And in the process of recounting, it's discovered that there are some votes that were actually didn't go to in fact, the Republicans won more states because there are votes that were not actually hitting the PDP, the Democratic ballot. So it's as important as it when you are now counting, manual counting. But if it's electronic counting, the machines can pick quickly. But when you now come to manual counting, you have to, everybody will see the charts and you put it, everybody will see. So that is as important as it is.
That is the extent that the race is close. If in any swing state, for instance, 70% of the votes is cast and counted, and there is a gap of about 30-35%, I mean, the results can as well be announced. But as we can see happening now, the two major candidates are going neck to neck in a lot of these, swing states.
That's why they are called swing states now, because the two parties none of the parties has a majority there. So it is a question of few counties. Let me tell you what happens actually. It's few counties that make a state a swing state. Maybe 2 or 3 counties that are populated by people that move in and move out.
Demographic
population that is dynamic. So on that basis, you don't know. Because if it is this election, people have moved out and new people have moved in, you won't know.
I see. Now let's look at the other issues that are ancillary to what we are discussing. This brings me to we have discussed the implications of the fact that in spite of everything, the Republican candidates, Donald Trump, emerged. Let's look at a scenario of the state of the Republican Party as a party.
It's a wonderful...
Because as a party, George W. Bush is quoted as saying that he may likely be the last president of a Republican Party. Is he, by implication, accepting that Donald Trump will not win?
Of course. Let me tell you how Donald Trump has done more damage to the Republican Party than any other person else because of saying, I'm going to build the walls. I'm going to ban Muslims. Blacks are irrelevant. And those things he said, we take 2 elections to erase. Because actually Americans are going more towards Democrats. Because Democrats represent dynamism, progressive, openness, welcoming immigrants, making America more of a racially neutral nation. So with this thing that is coming, more states are becoming democratic states. Just like very soon, it's called Florida will be completely a blue state. So what is happening is that unless the Republicans stop their right-wing policies, hitting on minorities, religion, and sexism, then Republicans can actually start winning back. But as it is now, most states are going to the center. Most states are becoming progressives. So it becomes difficult for Republicans because the southern states that are actually conservative states are more rural, agrarian states, that they are not college graduates, they are not in modern economies and things like that. So the less the population influences election, the less the Republicans will win the presidential election.
You see, that's why I differ with Scholar. It's not impossible that Donald Trump may not win this election. It's not totally...
You mean it's likely he will win?
Well, it's very likely. I mean, it's not over until it's over. I'm saying, now let's try to separate our sentiments as Africans, as members of a disadvantaged community within the polity of the United States of America, and place the onus, right on the doorstep of Americans. I keep saying that Donald Trump has loose, forgive my language, as he seemed throughout the campaign, right before the primaries, and beyond the expectation of even members of the Republican Party for him to have emerged in the first place, and the kind of sensation and vibration that he has made despite the scandals and unorthodox nature that he has conducted himself during the electioneering campaign. And today, the rate at which, the results is being released. Yes, taking Texas. Yes, Texas is traditionally,
Texas is not a swing state.
That's what I'm saying is traditionally a Republican state.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In the swing states, they are, so far, a lot of the results that have been released is neck to neck, but in Ohio is having an edge, in Florida is having an edge so far. Okay? Now, let's assume that by any streak of imagination, what I'm saying in essence is that we should be very, very careful about the way we try to adjudge the behavior of the expectations of the American population, vis-a-vis, placing it as if we are the voters in the United States of America. That's not the issue.
But looking at
that's what I'm saying. Listen. Look at the vote of Hispanics. Look at the vote of the, African Americans. What is the percentage? It's still less than the total number of votes of the whites in the United States of America. That's
not like that.
That's how it stands.
No, it's not like that because
not more than
the state. Depends the state, the population is
depending on the state. But on a national landscape, it's still not up to 40% of the total votes. It's still not up to 40% of the total votes. So I'm saying the expectation that we have always had is that reasonably educated Americans who will want to preserve the concept of melting pot, and then the aroma of the United States of America as the leading nation in the free world, or the leader of the free world, will not want a Trump who will build wall. That's our assumption. What happens in the event that they get racist and decide to vote for Trump? So I am saying, in as much as we will prefer Hillary Clinton to win the election as an African, as a Nigerian, okay, the onus does not really, the buck does not stop on our table. It still goes,
So all these assumptions today, the Americans who are voting, the Americans are voting, and the Americans have.
Let me tell you, my brother, they are trying to blow my trumpet. You see, this game, I have been part of this game, assign it. So you are looking at the electoral map. It's not sentiment. When I'm talking here, I'm not talking about sentiment.
And the electoral
college, that's the electoral map. When you look at the electoral map, you have already, Mrs. Clinton has already 268. And these are safe states for her. Now, Donald Trump has 204. These are safe states for her. Now, there are states to grab. So, to Ms. Clinton, fortunately, alter the game in 1 or 2 states. Or the wins. It's not a sentiment. The people voting in California, we vote you if you are a Democrat. I'm telling you the truth. Yeah. If you're a Democrat, they won't look even at your face. They will vote you because it's a traditional democratic state. You go to, so these states have already been known. So that's why you see here, people are not shouting. Here is dominated by Democrats. They're not shouting until they win a swing state. As soon as they win a swing state, you see how they will shout. Because they understand the game. This game is not about, I'm not talking sentimentally. I'm talking about the game, how it's played. As far as the swing states are concerned, these are they say that determine who wins the election. Now, the problem with Trump was that he went to the extreme, right-wing extreme. If he tried to move to the center, he would now be grabbing some swing states. He will now be grabbing some swing states because it has a good message. That message is, let's protect our jobs. Let's stop China dumping goods in China.
Let's make America great again.
Yeah, because that is protecting. Do you know that 70% of jobs Obama created were just not full-time jobs. So, but Americans want back their jobs, which makes sense to an average American that is living in a swing state, because most swing states are actually manufacturing states that are swinging to know who is actually protecting our interests. And that is the problem Mrs. Clinton has, because she is not protecting jobs. She is like the old system, continuing with the old system, but actually moving a niche. But this man said, we have to take over America. First of all, the immigrants are taking over your jobs. And it makes sense to somebody who lives in the South. Now, the Chinese are dumping their goods in America, displacing jobs. So when we buy made in China, we get the jobs, we get the goods, but we lose the jobs and the money. So let's get the jobs and our money back. So it makes sense to people in Ohio, people in Michigan has turned to become almost a swing state.
Yes.
Because Michigan is where you have Detroit, that is a super manufacturing, car manufacturing state. So you have to understand the dynamics. It's not sentiment. I'm not sentimental here. I've told you that if I were to vote based on reality, I'll vote Obama. I'll vote Trump. Because he will stop the dumping of Chinese goods in Nigeria. He will help us to actually close our borders and decide who brings in what into Nigeria.
Mr. Wagwara, Professor Matu, we will continue with our discussion here at the Eradua Center on the next American president. But for now, we will go back to Cyril in the America Decides studios at the NTA headquarters, where he will also continue with discussion there and then hand over to NTA International for the news at 4 a.m. Back to you, Cyril.
Thank you, Mohammed. I see that discussion right where you are is really, really animated, and so much passion coming out, especially from Odelim Ewegbara there. But again, these are the opinions that are generally going around in Nigeria today, and everyone at first seemed not to be taken into cognizance and a possible Trump presidency. And it's as if, 80% of Nigerians are rooting for the Clinton presidency and all that. And so right now, you'd find that a lot of people are really on edge just watching those figures change.
No, I think we took that possibility in. We just didn't want to accept it, that it could have. Look, in an election, particularly when in a number of areas you don't have any opinion poll, and given the way Trump, made a very good dash to close up the gap. It could go anywhere. What I think happened was the fact that even though he was closing up the gap, we still believe that he shouldn't be president. That's just, But then, as Professor has always said, we should respect the vote, the people's choice. And if it's the one, but it's still a long night. One must, one must say. And one thing again that we need to bear in mind is that if Trump had behaved and has conducted himself reasonably well, the truth of the matter is that he would have won this election outright. True. Because he tapped into the anger of a lot of Americans who just felt that Washington has disappointed them, and that in spite of the economic indices looking good, they've not been part and parcel of that some of the successes of the Obama administration. And the point one should make about that is that we had a similar situation in this country where under the Jonathan administration, for example, we were growing at 6-point-something%, but the people did not see the impact because there was no trickle down. And this happens around the world. Statistics could be good, everything could be looking well, but the real people are not feeling the impact of that growth. So if you find a politician who can tap into that anger and tell the people that he would do better, then you can be sure that he will win any election. So,
well, exactly. No, that's entirely right. My slight problem is where Trump is coming from. If he's coming from this sort of rational, objective standpoint on the people's anger, that was a whole different thing. But the economic indices are better than they've been for years. After the collapse of 2008, when Obama was able to save the banking system and revive the economy, credit must be given to him. His successes internationally are better than that of, say, the Bushes before him. And unemployment right now is less than 5%. It's 4.6%. Not bad at all. Generally against time, it was about 11%. But part of what is bothersome is that, if you like, call it the hidden agenda, but that is the fear that Trump of a whole range of people often called the rednecks, and people from all kinds of armed militia, fundamentalist groups. One of the most prominent will be what they call the 3%ers movement. The 3%ers are those mostly Anglo-Saxon redoubts who claim that it was the ancestors, 3% of the population during the time of George Washington, that created the revolution and that they owned the place. Then you have the promise keepers, the oath keepers and so on, who are, and most of them tend to be anti-black, anti-minority, and very clearly out of touch with the 21st century. So you have a situation where, indeed, if you run a clean campaign based on his record, on a degree of inclusiveness and some sort of international humanism, then we're talking of a whole different thing. But if it's the Trump we saw on the stump, saying what he has said, abusing women, abusing everybody else, what clearly will happen, quite simply, is that there will be a reaction against America if he carries this kind of policies into the White House. My colleagues have said that he probably may not. Well, we have to wait to be seen. But it seems to be somebody with a number of set beliefs. The system will check him. But remember that the president has a lot of enormous reserve powers, even before Parliament sits and so on. So it may not be as dire as we fear. But in a world in the 20th century where there have been three mighty ideologies that clashed, fascism, capitalism, socialism, all of them were defeated except market democracy. For someone to come with another ideological push that we understand very well, doesn't matter whether he even understands himself, but we know where it's coming from. It's worrisome. It's worrisome.
Well, it's still, as Ambassador Keshi said, still a long night, and yes, a lot of people would have hoped that by now it would be clear to see where the American presidency is headed. But we know that as at this point, we're still looking out and watching out for those results trickling in. And as soon as they come in, we'll update you on those results. And hopefully in another 1 or 2 hours, we would have a clearer picture, and we'll begin to know who should be the president of the U.S. For now, we'll go over to our news studio once again and link up with Ifeanyi Okafor, who has the news. Ifeanyi.